of the God who created us.
In the name of the Christ who teaches us.
In the name of the Spirit who journeys alongside us.
Welcome home, children of God. Good morning, First Elizabethan family, and welcome to worship this morning, Sunday, March the 7th, as we gather together as God's people in God's name. It is good to be with you all again this morning. Welcome you here and ask you to please take a moment and sign in, register your attendance somewhere in the YouTube chat or otherwise. As we always do, we'll give $1 for every person in attendance to a local ministry. Today, being the first Sunday of the month, means that our recipient is River's Edge Loaves and Fishes Ministry, a ministry in Carter County that provides hot meals to residents around the county. Not only do we give them $1 for everybody in worship today, but we also participate in the actual feeding, and that will happen this coming Saturday, March the 13th. Again, we need casseroles from roughly 12 to 15 volunteers at the church to make a casserole that can feed 10 to 15 people. If you are able or interested in participating in that ministry, please reach out to either Julia Rogers or Kathy Wing and let them know. They're coordinating the casseroles, and we would love to have your participation. Whether or not you can do a casserole, though, know that simply being in worship this morning also helps to support that ministry. So thank you for the gift of your presence. Keep those photos coming in for passing of the peace. Session members are reminded that we will meet tonight, Sunday night at 7 o'clock by Zoom. You should have that link and invitation in your email, and look forward to that. Otherwise, friends, as always, today is a day that God has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it as we worship together.
Good morning, church family. Today's invitation to worship is the first of Wendell Berry's Sabbaths poems. Not again in this flesh will I see the old trees stand here as they did, weighty creatures made of light, delight of their making straight in them, and well, whatever blight our blindness was or made, however thought or act might fail. The burden of absence grows, and I pay daily the grief I owe to love for men and women, days and trees I will not know again. Pray for the world's light thus borne away. Pray for the little songs that wake and move. For comfort as these lights depart, recall again the angels of the thicket, Columbine, Ariel in the whelming tangle, song drifting down, light rain, day returning in song, the lordly art piecing out its humble way. Though blindness may yet detonate in light, ruining all after all the years, great right subsumed finally in paltry wrong. What do we know? Still, the presence that we come into with song is here, shaping the seasons of his wild will.
Ye sinners, poor and needy, weak and wounded, sick and sore, Jesus ready stands to save you, full of pity, love, and power. I will arise and go to Jesus. He will embrace me in his arms, in the arms of my dear Savior. Oh, there are 10,000 charms. Come ye thirsty, come and welcome, God's free bounty glorified. True belief and true repentance, embrace me in his arms, in the arms of my dear Savior. Oh, there are 10,000 charms. Let not conscience make you linger, nor of fitness fondly dream. All the fitness he requireth is to feel your need of him. I will arise and go to Jesus. He will embrace me in his arms, in the arms of my dear Savior. Oh, there are 10,000 charms.
Good morning. Today for our meditation, I'm going to share a practice that was taught by Samuel Lewis to his students. I found it in the book In the Garden with Murshid Sam. Our guide for the meditation will be our breath, and there are several instructions about long breath, short breath, heavy breath, light breath. refined breath. It's not about what you do, it's about your experience. So, when you hear that instruction, breathe the way you think, what you think that means. And just notice what happens. So find your meditation posture, sitting erect and comfortably, letting your body relax, and your eyes close. And we're going to start just by noticing our breath. Next, I'm going to invite you to take a long breath in and a long breath out. Next, we're going to take a short breath in and a short breath out. Next, a heavy breath in, a heavy breath out. Our next breath will be a light breath, and just notice it's a light breath. And the following breath is a refined breath. Refined in, refined out. And now, breathe in all the love you can and breathe out all the love you can. Love in, love out. Keep seeing if you can add a little more love in and a little more love out. And the next breath is joy. Breathing in joy, breathing out joy. All the joy you can. All the joy you can out. In and out. Joy. And finally, with a refined breath, breathe in peace, breathe out peace. And now as you breathe out the peace, let it fill the room where you are. And now let that same peace spread from your room to the city, the community where you are. Peace in, peace out. Letting the peace touch your loved ones. Letting it flow wherever it is needed. With gratitude. Amen.
Today's reading is from Luke chapter 15, verses 1 through 32. Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming near to listen to him. And the Pharisees and the scribes were grumbling and saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them." So he told them this parable. Which one of you, having 100 sheep and losing one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one that is lost until he finds it? When he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders and rejoices. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, "Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep that was lost." Just so, I tell you, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who need no repentance. Or what woman, having 10 silver coins, if she loses one of them, does not light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? When she has found it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, "Rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I had lost." Just so, I tell you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Then Jesus said, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me." So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to the field to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare, but here I am dying of hunger? I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands.' So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his slaves, 'Quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate. Now his elder son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. He called one of the slaves and asked what was going on. He replied, 'Your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf because he has got him back safe and sound.' Then he became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, 'Listen, for all those years I have been working like a slave for you, and I have never disobeyed your command. Yet you have never given me even a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours comes back, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him.' Then the father said to him, 'Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found.'"
Good morning, First Elizabethan family. It's good to be with you again this morning, as always. So I'm sure that every profession has some of them, the things that you learned that everyone else often gets wrong, people who are not in that profession. And for me as a minister, it's some of those little pet peeves are like when people refer to the last book of the Bible in the plural as revelations. It's not plural, it's just the one revelation. Or thinking that Eve ate an apple, or that Satan tempted her to do so. The Genesis story doesn't say what kind of fruit was on the tree, and it also doesn't say that the serpent was Satan. Another one of those is when people use the word prodigal to mean something like returning home after seeing the error of your ways, or repenting of your failures, or returning to the fold after being independent and stupid for a while. Maybe that last one is more related to vocabulary than to theology, but it's an important distinction when it comes to how we read this story. The word prodigal actually means spending resources recklessly and wastefully. And so the younger son is a prodigal, but not because he returns home. He's a prodigal because he squandered the resources that he had. So it seems a little strange to me that we keep calling this story the parable of the prodigal son. I mean, a kid coming of age, leaving home for a while and making poor monetary choices in his or her youth, that's not really all that uncommon when you think about it. more than that, it really doesn't make the younger son the most interesting character in the story. Far from it, I think. Jesus tells this story right on the heels of two other stories. The first about a lost sheep, and the second about a lost coin. And then he begins a third story with there was a man who had two sons. The younger one leaves home, engages in profligate wastefulness until he has nothing left, and then he returns home to his father. When he does, the grateful parent who has found his lost son runs to greet him with instructions to get the fatted calf and kill it. And let us eat and celebrate, for this son of mine was dead and is alive again. Like father, like son. Actually, the dad is now the one to act the prodigal, ignoring the inheritance that he's already doled out, and once again showering on his younger son the best of everything.
I didn't find that on Apple.
It is wasteful, extravagant, and imprudent. It is prodigal. But notice who is not mentioned as invited to the party. The parable begins, a man had two sons. But now it seems like the prodigal dad has lost count, because no one runs out to invite the older son to the feast. No one has even noticed that he's missing. And so when word finally gets to the dad that he has another son, a son who is still out in the field, then the father goes out to find him. Now it becomes a little more like the previous two parables. See, the younger son found his own way back home. He may have been lost like the coin and the sheep in the preceding two parables, but unlike the coin or the sheep, the younger son found himself. See, it's only when it comes to the second older son that the father now takes on the role of a man searching for his sheep and a woman searching for her coin. And so he now goes out looking for what was lost. Once the recognition comes that something, that someone is missing, he does what the shepherd and the woman do. Realizing his loss, his lost son, the son who didn't find himself, the son whom he loves, the father seeks out the older son to make his family whole. And that's where this parable begins to take on a little bit different tone. Because unlike a sheep that can be lifted on one's shoulders or a coin that can be picked up from the floor, returning the lost son to his home proves much more difficult. And Jesus leaves the story intentionally with some unresolved questions. Questions like what will happen to this family when the father dies and the elder son obtains his inheritance? Will the older son keep Junior in the restored position to which the father elevated him? Or will the older son send his younger brother to the stables to be treated as one of the hired laborers? Or will the older son continue in the prodigal ways of the rest of his family, extending unwarranted generosity and lavish gifts on his younger brother as his father did? To me, that is the real heart of the story. See, the father acts in the same way as he always has, generous, forgiving, perhaps naively so. And honestly, I neither like nor trust the younger son. I do not see him as doing anything other than what he has always done, which is to take advantage of his father's love. But the older son, the one who is left to finish the story, the only one who can actually finish the story, who might actually change. The one piece, the only hurdle that stands in the way of the older son changing, is forgiveness. Forgiving his younger brother for his prodigal habits. Forgiving his father for, it seems, losing the oldest son in the excitement of the younger one turning home. And so if the real main character in this parable is really the older brother,
I found this on the
I'm left wondering if this story is about the sinful younger son finding grace, or if it's about the unwarranted forgiveness of the loving parent, or if instead, maybe it is a story about the older brother and the hard, difficult work of forgiveness. Even when forgiveness is unwarranted, undeserved, and unsought. See, if the older brother takes anything away from this story, I believe it is this. Don't wait until you receive an apology. You may never get one. Don't wait until you can muster the ability to forgive. You may never find it. Don't stew in your own sense of being ignored, for there is nothing that can be done to retrieve the past. Instead, look at this story in the context of some other fraternal parables and look beyond the offense to extend unwarranted and undeserved grace. After all, a father once had two sons, Cain and Abel. Cain committed fratricide. But that is not the sum total of who Cain was. The mark of Cain becomes a mark of divine protection. And if God can protect him, then surely we can as well. So can we find it in our hearts to reconcile Cain to the human family? The father had two sons, Isaac and Ishmael. If either is sacrificed, then both are. Today, some of the children of Isaac and Ishmael can find themselves at odds or at war, as the Middle East shows us. Yet these two sons reunite at Abraham's death, and together they bury him. Ishmael's hand was to be against his brothers, but Ishmael here proves the prediction wrong. A father had two sons, Jacob and Esau, one who stole a birthright and blessing, and one who vowed murder and revenge. And yet when Jacob, wounded from his wrestling at the Jabbok River, encounters Esau, the two reconcile. A father had two sons. See, the details can be filled in from other fraternal parables in the Bible, from our own lives. The details can be filled in, and that's the work that we are left to do.
Could you try again?
It is up to us how we're going to write the ending of the story. Are we going to do the work of forgiveness and reconciliation even when unwarranted and undeserved? Or are we going to remain lost? That's how the parable ends. That's the ending left open for the older brother to write in this case. And as Jesus often does with his parables, he leaves the hard work of writing that ending up to us. Amen.
Witness the wonder This is how God longs for us when we roam. These are the stories that Jesus imparts, filled with the Spirit who joins us as one. One through our voices, our hands, and our hearts. This is a new world where God's will is done.
Beloved church family, as you go out into the world today, and whatever today or this week holds for you, may the road rise up to meet you.
May the wind blow always at your back.
May the sun shine warm upon your face.
May the rains fall soft upon your fields.
And until we meet again,
May God hold you in the hollow of her hand.
Amen.
Amen.